Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk landing spots for rookie running backs. These aren't all clear workhorse and bell cow situations, but some of these landing spots are underrated, and some of these rookies might be more fantasy relevant than you think, sooner than you think. Let's get into it. Let's start with Jonathan Brooks, landing with Carolina with the 14th pick in the second round. First of all, very solid draft capital. If he wasn't coming off a torn ACL, the word is that he might have been a first-round pick. The good news with the ACL is that it's a clean ACL with no further ligament damage, which means for young athletic running backs, it's not so much of a concern even in their first year back. Think more Breece Hall, clean ACL tear, and less Javonte Williams, who tore his ACL, plus a whole lot more. 9 months post-surgery is usually where players are good to resume playing in an NFL game. There's a very good chance Brooks will make it back for training camp in some capacity. Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard are not threats to Brooks, but it's very possible one of them, my guess would be Chuba Hubbard, can work in a little bit early on, right? It could even be a 50-50 split for the first few games while Brooks gets his legs back under him for game conditions. But at some point, maybe a quarter way through the season, I expect it to be the Brooks show. 16 to 20 touches per game, a lot of that in the receiving game. We talked about this pre-draft. He leads this class in yards per route run. He's a capable receiver, and his head coach Dave Canales said that a big part of why they drafted him was because of his ability in the receiving game and the fact that it's a big part of the offense. The route participation was key too. Rachaad White was only behind Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson in routes per quarterback dropback last year, which is a huge factor. If Brooks can sniff that, we're sitting pretty. Canales was the OC of the Bucs last year, and Rachaad was not only top 10 in targets, but he was also top 10 in rushes per game, despite him being inefficient, and it resulted in him finishing as a top 10 fantasy running back on a per game basis. I'm not going to overvalue the just a guy type of running backs who are currently on the Panthers roster, so I'll take any discount I can get for Brooks in his rookie year. Trey Benson landed with the Cardinals, 3rd round, pick 2, solid draft capital. Here's the thing. James Conner was really good last year. One of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. If he stays healthy all year, this either stays a primary Conner backfield as the clear lead guy with Benson working in a bit, or Benson shows a ton early and is able to work in maybe close to a 50-50 split. They do complement each other well. Benson has that home run ability that Conner doesn't at this point of his career. I don't necessarily see Benson completely taking over if Conner stays healthy. But here's the thing. Conner's 29 years old. He has an injury history. He misses games. Benson can end up being a league winner if Conner can't hold up, or if he falls off a cliff, which many running backs do at this age. So I'm not staying clear of Benson in redraft. Just have to understand that the range of outcomes for him is very wide, right? But someone who contributes late in the season to help you win your league is in the range of outcomes. In terms of Conner, I hope you sold him before the draft if he was still sticking around on your dynasty roster. I wouldn't be overly excited to grab him in redraft, but his RB24 price tag isn't terrible. I just don't love drafting older running backs. He isn't Derrick Henry, right? And there's always the risk that Conner never gets his full-time job back if he does get hurt mid-season and Benson seizes that opportunity, performs, and at that point, you can't really put the genie back in the bottle. Blake Corum goes to the Rams with the 19th pick in the 3rd round. This makes me so much more interested in him dynasty-wise, more so because his ceiling just got raised, and I believe this offense, if he were to able to get this opportunity to be the guy, that's going to support him at a high level, right? His floor is very low, though, because I do believe that Kyren Williams will continue to be close to a bell cow for the Rams for the foreseeable future. Maybe his snaps go down a bit, maybe to 70 to 75% opposed to like the 90% that he was getting last year, but that's perfectly fine, right? That RB1 appeal is still there. I don't see Corum making this a committee. Kyren killed it last year. Sean McVay loves him, and he was a big producer, and he was very efficient on the ground last year as well. Blake Corum in his last year was not. I will say though, Corum becomes a very high value handcuff to Kyren Williams. If Kyren Williams were to ever go down or get hurt, I don't think we're looking at a split backfield like we did last year when Kyren missed time with the high ankle sprain. This could be the same workhorse role just being transferred over to Corum. So he's someone who should be rostered all year on benches in redraft because we will spend our entire fat budget on him if something were to happen to Kyren. Another thing to note here, if you draft Kyren Williams in the 2nd round, you have to understand if he ends up getting hurt and let's say Corum comes in and kills it, it's possible we don't ever see Kyren Williams as the bell cow again, right? That is the risk you're taking. Is that risk high? I don't think so. I'm still willing to take that shot on Kyren in the second round because he is still in the running to be the overall RB1 this year, but we have to understand the risks. Marshawn Lloyd gets picked by the Packers with the 25th pick in the third round, despite Green Bay bringing in Josh Jacobs. Keep in mind again that Jacobs is basically on a one-year deal. The Packers have zero financial obligations towards Jacobs after 2024, so Lloyd, at the very least, can be the Packers' three-down workhorse in 2025. But you look at what the Packers OC Adam Stenavich said about him being limited in his rookie year. He said no. He wants to get him out there and take advantage of his speed, his explosiveness, and ability in the receiving game. We could see him complement Josh Jacobs in year one, and just remember how inefficient Jacobs was last year on the ground. I think Jacobs has the upside to be a solid RB1 this year because of volume and a good offense, but there is some real downside too at this point with Lloyd in the mix. And by the way, Lloyd is one of the best values in dynasty rookie drafts right now. He's going off the board late second. I've seen him even go mid-third round. He's going almost a full round after Jonathon and Trey Benson. This landing spot is better than it might seem on paper. Think of a role Aaron Jones would have got earlier in his career if he was just a bit bigger, right? That's what Lloyd can get in this offense. Lloyd is more of a three-down and receiving threat than Trey Benson is, in my opinion, and we know how much more targets matter than carries when it comes to fantasy. So don't sleep on Lloyd in rookie drafts and as a high-value later round handcuff at the very least in redraft. By the way, guys, our rookie draft kit has been updated post-draft. Go to upperhandfantasy.com to get the updated copy. It now includes landing spot analysis, blurbs, landing spot grades, updated ADPs with target and avoid indicators, updated positional rankings, updated overall rookie rankings, my targets and all that, right? So that's obviously in addition to what we already had in there in terms of the rookie analysis itself. We had like 9 grades for each player, how we think their skill set translates to the NFL. So that's upperhandfantasy.com. Go get your copy today. And by the way, our Dynasty kit, which includes Dynasty rankings and more, is included. The link will be in the description. Back to these running backs. Jaylen Wright goes to the Dolphins in the 4th round with the 25th pick. Not the ideal draft capital for him. 4th round is still very iffy for running backs, but hey, I like him as a player. I think he needed some development, but if he could have landed on any team, he landed on the team I think he could find the most success with without having to develop as much as he would have given a different landing spot. Why? Because he had wide open running lanes at Tennessee. Never really had to worry about a stacked box. He just finds the hole and boom, he's gone with that 4.38 speed. So now he's in Miami, where both Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane were in the top 15 in yards before contact per attempt. Devon Achane was number 1 in that category among all qualifying running backs last year. Mostert is 32 years old. He's got to be done at some point. Whether that's this year or next year, it's going to be Jaylen Wright and Devon Achane as complements to each other, and that is one deadly combo right there. You know that Achane was always going to have a complement alongside him, right? He was never going to be a bell cow or anything, right? But I think this is best case scenario for him, right? This does not hurt Achane's dynasty value, in my opinion. I'd be looking to buy if anyone's feeling some type of way about Achane after this draft pick. There's no doubt this is a crowded backfield right now, and Raheem Mostert will get his opportunities early in the year alongside Achane, and he'll likely keep it as long as he stays on the field, but Wright will be waiting in the wings to grasp that opportunity if it comes. Bucky Irving lands with the Bucs in the 4th round with the 25th pick, just 5 picks after Miami took Jaylen Wright. You guys already know that I'm a big fan of Bucky. I also know that he has to beat a lot of odds to be a legit fantasy contributor. I admit that, okay? So his size, terrible combine, his now day 3 draft capital, his lack of big playability, all things working against him. But he just knows how to play the running back position, okay? Yards after contact, missed tackles forced, yards per route run, just overall production. One of the best over the last 10 years in those categories in the Power 5. He's efficient. He makes guys miss. I'm a big fan of his game. Can't really say the same about Rachaad White last year in the run game among his peers in the NFL, okay? Obviously, NFL, college, different, but among their peers, one was really, really good, one wasn't. Can Bucky make a dent in Rachaad White's workload? I can see it. Does he have the case that some of the guys drafted above him do? No, I don't think he does. I never thought Sean Tucker was a good running back, and many people thought that he had a chance of being a part of this rotation last year. They even thought that he could beat out Rachaad White. I never did, personally. I will say that I like Bucky's chances to make a dent this year more than I liked Tucker's chances last year. Will Shipley goes to the Eagles at the end of the 4th round. This was a little high for me for Shipley, but good for him. He has some skills in the receiving game, so there could be some value here if Saquon were to get hurt, but I don't trust this backfield behind Saquon, especially with Kenny Gainwell still on the roster. It'll likely be a timeshare, or it's even possible that Gainwell is the guy to grab over Shipley this year if Saquon were to get hurt. Ray Davis lands with the Bills at the end of the 4th round. If Davis was like 3 years younger, he would be one of my top backs in this class. He has the skills, but he just has a short window, right? Which is why I wasn't high on him in Dynasty. However, I think he's pro-ready. I think he's very capable in the run game. He's underrated in the receiving game, and I think he can contribute on early downs alongside James Cook as early as week 1 of this season. The Bills had 21 running back carries inside the 5-yard line last year during the regular season, which was plenty. The most in the NFL was Gus Edwards with 23 last year. Derrick Henry, anyone? Anyway, my point is that there is opportunity here for Ray Davis. They try to fill that big back gap with Leonard Fournette, washed. Latavius Murray, washed. Damian Harris, retired. Now they bring in Ray Davis, who is almost retired, but I think he is very capable. He stood out to me at the Senior Bowl practices, which is hard to do as a running back, and I think he could work in with James Cook. Remember how annoying Cook's usage was last year, especially around the goal line? Yeah, it could get pretty annoying once again. Huge range of outcomes for Cook, who I think can benefit in the receiving game without no real alpha wide receiver to be a target hog, but we'll see. Isaac Guerendo gets drafted by the 49ers, 1 pick after Ray Davis at the end of the 4th. This is a classic Kyle Shanahan pick right here. He likes fast running backs who fits the outside zone run scheme. This is Raheem Mostert all over again. Guerendo was one of my sleepers pre-draft, and while this is a very crowded backfield, Guerendo has a shot to move his way up above Elijah Mitchell on the depth chart. Am I calling for it? No, because Shanahan really likes Mitchell too. I can see Mitchell closing out games and stuff still, but Guerendo is that shot out of a cannon type of player who can get worked in if McCaffrey were to ever go down. So don't count him out as a non-fantasy relevant player this year. Braelon Allen sitting behind Breece Hall is solid, but is he even the clear handcuff to Breece? I don't know. Isaiah Davis was drafted 1 round later by the Jets, so we'll see some sort of competition between those two. I wasn't a huge fan of where Allen's skill set is today coming in, but he is very young. He's the youngest back in this class, so he has time to develop, and he's going to be sitting behind Breece Hall. That's a good thing for his development. I think Isaiah Davis is definitely someone to watch as well. He was the best running back in the FCS over the last few years, so keep that in mind. I really liked Audric Estime coming in, but I'm not sure I'm betting on him to beat Javonte Williams out or anything like that. I like him more than several running backs drafted ahead of him. I think he was more of a 4th rounder than a 5th rounder, and I think he's a very solid backup to Javonte. We'll see if Javonte can bounce back after he's now a year removed from a very bad knee injury. It wasn't just an ACL, it was a lot more than that, so I think he has a chance of looking way better than he did last year. Although they are probably long shots, there are 2 day 3 running backs who could have a chance to win the overall RB1 job for their respective teams. And that's Tyrone Tracy for the Giants and Kimani Vidal for the Chargers. Let's start with Tracy, whose main competition is Devin Singletary. Eric Gray will also fight for the job, but I think Tracy is the main guy Singletary should be worried about. He was a former wide receiver who was just extremely efficient with his carries once he converted to a running back later in his career. And of course, he's a very good receiving back as well. So we'll see if he can win over that Giants coaching staff. He was a dark horse sleeper for me pre-draft, and now he might have a chance to surprise as a David Johnson type of running back. Kimani Vidal didn't play in the Power 5, but he was an overall pretty good running back coming out of Troy. He took on big workloads, had a ton of volume throughout his career, and among other FBS running backs over the last 10 years with a ton of volume like he had in the run game, he ranked relatively high in yards after contact and missed tackles forced, so there can be something here with Vidal competing with Gus Edwards. I think Gus definitely has the upper hand in this backfield. He's the vet, he's been productive, he knows Greg Roman's system, and it's possible we see a Gus Vidal 1-2 punch at some point. Greg Roman refused to give anyone the keys to the backfield in his time in Baltimore, even with an extremely efficient and young rookie J.K. Dobbins. Speaking of Dobbins, he's coming back from an Achilles injury, so I wouldn't expect him to be a big factor this season. I'm rooting for him, but it's a long shot. I'm hoping that he can defy the odds and be somewhat of himself in 2025, but I do think Gus Edwards is the lead back and goal line back as long as he stays healthy. On a run-heavy offense, don't sleep on him. Again, if you haven't checked out our rookie draft kit, fully updated after the draft with landing spot grades, projections, landing spot projections, rankings, and so much more, upperhandfantasy.com is where you can find that. It also includes our dynasty kit, which includes dynasty rankings and more. You'll also end up getting our season-long draft kit as well, which is coming up very soon. Stay tuned for that. But the link will be in the description. Thank you guys. See you soon.